Imagine cities crumbling, skies ablaze, the titanic creatures clashing. You've seen Godzilla, right? But that's just the tip of the iceberg. We're diving deep into a genre that's bigger, crazier, and more epic than you've ever imagined. Welcome to the wild world of Kaiju. But where do you even start? Don't worry, I've got you. First stop, the granddaddy of them all, Godzilla 1954. This isn't just a movie, it's a cultural phenomenon. It's a powerful metaphor for post-war anxieties, atomic fears, and the raw power of nature. This is a must-see for any serious fan. Watch this to get the context for everything that follows. It's not just about destruction, it's about the message. Now, let's take a trip to Skull Island with King Kong. Now you have two options, the 1933 original or Peter Jackson's 2005 reimagining. Now, both have their merits. The original is a classic, pioneering special effects of its time, and Peter Jackson's version takes the time to give Kong emotional depth and is a fantastic movie in its own right. Whether you go classic or modern, Kong reminds us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are also the most tragic. Next, we're heading to South Korea with The Host. This movie is a game changer. It blends commentary, family drama, and a seriously creepy monster into a film that's both thrilling and thought-provoking. It proves that monster movies can have real heart and real bite. Now finally, we're going to experience the chaos through a handheld lens with Cloverfield. This found footage monster movie is absolutely intense. It's also immersive and can genuinely be scary at times. It throws you right into the middle of a city under siege, and it doesn't let up. This shows that you don't need to see every detail of the monster to be scared of it. Think of a movie like Jaws. The unknown can be just as terrifying as what you can see. Now, let's take a turn slightly more to eccentric territory. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which came out in 1974, is a fantastic stepping stone. It's got the sci-fi elements, the spectacle, but also a hint of the delightful weirdness that the genre can offer. This movie is a perfect bridge into the more bombastic side of Kaiju. From here, you have a choice. You can either go deeper into the wild and wonderful Showa era, or you can venture into the more serious and darker Heisei era. Now, if you choose the Showa path, buckle up. We're talking Monster Zero, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Mothra vs. Godzilla, and King Kong vs. Godzilla. These movies are pure, unadulterated fun. Expect crazy monster battles, outlandish plots, and a whole lot of charm. The Showa era is all about the spectacle. Now, if you prefer a more serious tone, then the Heisei era is for you. Start with the Gamera Heisei trilogy. Then, dive into Return of Godzilla, 1984, Japanese version, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, and Godzilla vs. Biollante, as well as Godzilla vs. Destroyer. These films are a little darker, more complex, and often feature impressive special effects. The Heisei era is a more mature take on the genre. Now, if you like the Heisei era at this point and want to continue down that path, you'll want to start with Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, or better known as GMK, and Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. These Millennium-era movies continue the trend of more serious tones, but still contain some aspects of the sci-fi tropes that the genre is known for. From there, you'll want to move on to Godzilla 2014, and then Shin Gojira, as well as Godzilla -1. These movies are more serious and carry stronger narratives and continue to push the boundaries of what a kaiju movie can be. The modern era has found a great balance between spectacle and storytelling. If you want to continue the more fun, crazy, and cheesy path, then return to the Showa era and pretty much pick what you want. These movies are more of an anthology, so they can be viewed in any order. My recommendation would be Godzilla vs. Megalon, Godzilla vs. Gigan, Destroy All Monsters, which is like a kaiju version of the Avengers from back in the 70s. There are still some more movies that are less cheesy, like Terror of Mechagodzilla, and Godzilla vs. Hedorah, which is a movie that really goes back and forth from the goofy sci-fi tropes to a more serious tone and messages on the environment. I would say Godzilla vs. Hedorah is the most volatile to tether that line of serious and goofy. You also have movies like War of the Gargantuas, which is just straight up fun. Then you have all the Gamera movies. However, if you want a crash course in Gamera, then I would recommend Gamera Super Monster. It's a movie that's produced with all the highlights and his fights from each movie and all his major villains in one. Now look, I know it's a lot to take in, so here are a few titles I would not recommend because they're just straight up bad. For starters, Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster. Don't do it to yourself. Also known as Godzilla vs. Ebirah, All Monsters Attack, or known as Godzilla's Revenge, and pretty much all the Gamera movies except his very first film, and then finally, Son of Godzilla. As I said, Gamera Super Monster is all you need to learn about Gamera, and I would recommend it before the Heisei era, so you at least have a little bit of context of the character. You also have some other solo monster movies that you can watch during the Showa era. Rodan has a solo movie, Mothra has a solo movie, and the lesser known or lesser popular, depending on who you ask, Varan the Unbelievable. Finally, once you're hooked, you still have some modern gems to get into. There's Pacific Rim, and also the anime Pacific Rim the Black, which is absolutely extraordinary. The Lake, which is a kaiju movie that was recently produced in Thailand, I believe 2022. Then you still have the rest of the legendary Godzilla and Kong movies. You also have some older titles that are not necessarily giant monster movies, but are welcomed additions like Tremors. And then you have Godzilla 98. Don't let anyone discourage you from watching it. It may not look like Godzilla, and you will hear heavy vitriol and hatred for the movie, but it is still a very fun monster romp that I would not recommend missing. Throughout this video, you might have heard me use terms like Showa era, Heisei era, GMK, and more. This is part of the fun kaiju lingo, if you will. For example, you might hear someone say, "Oh, I love Bio Goji's design." That means they're talking about Godzilla's suit from Godzilla vs. Biolante, Bio Goji. Fans often combine Goji with their abbreviated movie title or whatever era they're talking about to express their favorite either suit or moment. Speaking of eras, Showa, Heisei, and Reiwa refer to the Japanese imperial periods when those movies were released. The Millennium era is a bit of an exception. While technically part of the Heisei era, it distinguishes the Godzilla from the 2000s from the Godzilla from the 1990s. And as you might notice as you watch these movies, each era has its own unique take on Godzilla's design, and some eras use multiple designs. Finally, there's the fanbase. The Kaiju fanbase is similar to any major IP fanbase like Star Wars or DC or Marvel. It's not nearly as large, but it's just as present and active, and a lot of times they intertwine. You'll meet people who endlessly talk about these movies and fantasy book ideas for major clashes that have not yet been seen, like Gamera vs. Godzilla, or movies they would like to see. You also have the collector side. Kaiju toys and figurines are a major contributor as to why this genre continues to live on. The collector community is almost a fan base in its own right, almost separate from the movies, but of course it derives from them. And yes, like any fan base, you'll have your rotten eggs, but these are easy to spot and to avoid. Oftentimes, these are fans who are senseless, purist, and they tend to gatekeep. Much like other fan bases, these are fan bases that lean in one direction or the other and will not waver, and at times will grotesquely argue why what they like is far superior to what you like, and tell you why you're dumb or stupid for liking what you like. that sort of garbage. But the majority of fans, like other fan bases, have what I consider to be the best fans, which are the hybrids. These are people who love both modern and traditional takes, and oftentimes will constructively criticize either or, while still appreciating the fact that you have your own opinion. These fans are easy to spot. I mean, hey, you're looking at one. So there you have it, your ultimate beginner's guide to the incredible, diverse, and downright monstrous world of kaiju. We've journeyed from the somber origins of Godzilla to the wild intergalactic battles of the Showa era, all the way to the modern cinematic masterpieces that continue to redefine the genre. Remember, this is just the beginning. There's a whole universe of giant monsters waiting to be discovered. And the best part is, you get to choose your own adventure. Whether you prefer the classic charm, the serious narratives, or the sheer unadulterated fun, the kaiju genre has something for everyone. And don't forget, you are now part of a community that celebrates these movies on a consistent basis. I want to hear from you. What kaiju movie are you most excited to start off with? Or, if you're already a seasoned kaiju fan, what's your absolute favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more deep dives into the world of cinematic monsters, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for joining me on this huge adventure down the history of the kaiju. This is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.